Hi, my name is Matt Ross. I am an ag teacher at Kendrick High School in Kendrick, Idaho. My entry this year for Ideas Unlimited is orange animals. Now, this is a lab that I do for all of my animal science classes prior to us doing any actual physical dissections of animals or animal tissues in our lab. The idea behind this lab stemmed from when I first began teaching, and I realized through observation that a lot of my students, when they first got into their dissection lab, it was a little overwhelming. It was intimidating, they were frightened of it, and they really couldn't get over the idea that they were about to dissect an animal. So what I realized is a lot of my first labs were kind of wasted with our students getting used to dissecting an animal rather than my whole intent, which was actually learning dissection skills and learning the parts of the animal. So what I did is I decided to do a precursor lab where we actually dissect fruit using all of the same tools that we would in an animal dissection lab, because fruit, especially like oranges, not only are they not threatening, but they smell good, they look good. Most students like to eat them, so it's a very familiar object. It's not scary. And I also realized that we needed to have the students be attached to the animals that they were using in the lab, or the oranges that they're using in the lab, just as they would be looking at a fetal pig or any other preserved specimen, and they realized that's a former animal sitting there. So what I did is I decided that we were going to modify our lab, and we were going to spend our first day getting to know our animals and making our animals as anatomically correct as we could by adding either felt or foam additives to our animals. So ears, tails, nose, eyes. Yes, we had a cow, udder included, and a tail, right where you would expect it. And they can be any sorts of animals. So pigs, cows, you could do horses. Down here, this is what our pig looks like before we put it on here. So these are felt ears, googly eyes, a pipe cleaner tail, and that's all held onto our orange with hot glue. Now with this, all of the supplies I had here, as far as the felt, the pipe cleaners, the glue, the googly eyes, the glue dots, all of that's available at the dollar store. Then also oranges, get those in a bag. They're fairly cheap early on in the year. So you just saw day one of our orange animal lab. So that's our introduction where they get to know their animal and become attached to it. And it's where you can kind of set the stage of what they're going to do and what they're going to see. So as they work on their animals, you can talk about that. So day two is where we actually take our animals into the lab, and then we begin the dissection portion of that. With our animals, one of the things that's nice is you can either start with fresh oranges like this, or you can go ahead and work with the student oranges. One of the things that's nice about using hot glue is when you get into the lab and it's time to start cutting into the animal, you can actually pop and remove these off. So they can go fully furnished into the lab just like that, and put them in a tray. You also notice that this is a brand new tray. With this lab, I use all tools that are just dedicated to this lab only. That way, if you do have a student that does decide to take a bite of that juicy orange, we're not contaminating them with some sort of other specimen that we've dissected previously. Each group gets a kit, and in there I make sure that I have the full dissection kit of all the tools that they will be using in their actual physical dissection. And I've created a lab booklet that goes with that. So it's a step-by-step lab booklet talking about the tools, working on scientific drawings, and then it walks them step by step through the actual physical dissection of their orange animal. Now, the other thing is we chose oranges because oranges themselves carry a lot of similar structures and there's a lot of similar structures and similar strengths to the tissues as you might find in an actual dissection. And it also has 3 layers to it, just as a fetal pig would. So fetal pig, you've got your epidermis, mesoderm, and endoderm. In this, we have an exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. So all of those same structures are here, and we actually take advantage of that as a part of our lab we actually have our students deliver portions of that specimen and then label them in the tray. And for me, that's also a check-off item. I can walk around and say, yes, you've got the exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp, and then I check those off for that. And so there's a stage for them to go through. The first of that is that they have to come through and actually do some drawings. So with that, we're going to have them look for anything that they might find on their orange. In this case, we have a scar. We're going to make sure that they are drawing that on here, because if you were doing a necropsy, you'd want to note any damage that we might have on that animal that would clue us to why it died. And of course, we have ventral and dorsal view, so they're also starting to learn locations. I take this donor orange and bring him in, and I'll start running you through a portion of that lab. Imagine that we've already done the drawing, and then we come into the next step, which is actually starting to remove a portion of the rind of the orange or our skin of our animal. So in here, we give them a location. They're going to start where the stem is, and then they're going to make their first incision into their orange, making sure that they are practicing proper cutting. And they're getting all the way through that rind. It's also great practice with this rind because they are learning that when they cut through the tissue of that animal, they can't go too deep, because if they end up going too deep, they're going to cut down into the other structures that are down below the rind or down below the skin of the animal. And then one of the best tools I have for them to remove the flesh is I actually have them use a blunt probe, and you can draw that across the backside of the rind. Or if you really want, and you want them to practice removing a hide properly, you can have them use a scalpel to make that final cut. Okay, and then this is again our first check-off item. Every group is given their own selection of T-pins. In this case, I just have stick pins. And they will take those pins, and then in the very back of the book, I have pre-typed out the identifiers. So this is the exocarp. They're going to stick that pin right in exocarp, and they're going to put that on the outside of the rind, marking the exocarp. They'll go to the next, which is the mesocarp. They'll put that right in the middle, marking there. And then the last one is the endocarp. Okay, and then that goes on the inner surface. So this is just as they would be in a lab, labeling those structures, and then they set them off to the side. They indicate to me that they're done, and then that is their check-off item. Here, and we're going to have them identify and remove some venal tissue on the orange. So there are veins in an orange, just like there is nerve tissue and veins and arteries in our other specimens. Then they start using our forceps to remove that venal tissue. And then just as before, that's a check-off item. So once they get venal tissue removed, and they've got a large portion of that venal tissue, we'll have them set that off to the side. They'll add the stick pin to it, and then that's a check-off item. The next thing that they're going to do, they're going to look at other structures in there. They're going to look at partitions. This is really how that lab goes, is identifying small parts of the orange and labeling them, and then filling out the lab sheet. I want them to reflect on that to see really what they thought in doing the dissection, and set their mind on what is it going to be like when I'm actually doing this with a real animal. Because things will be different. Things will be smellier. Things are going to look kind of weird. And I've found that using this lab beforehand, doing the cute little animals, and then transitioning over to cutting those same cute little animals open, has really allowed my students to have an easier transition and learn a lot more in my actual dissection labs doing it this way, rather than just plunging in headfirst with a fetal pig dissection. This is pretty much a all-in-one lab for students. All said and done, as long as you have the dissection tools, all of the supplies for this are under $30. It's a really easy, straightforward lab, one that I really enjoy, one that my students really enjoy, and one that I hope that your students enjoy. Thank you.